Welcome to the Thriving Tides Podcast. I'm Stephanie.
And I'm Julianne. If you're an entrepreneur or busy individual looking for self-care ideas, you're in the right place.
And we can't wait to share our experiences with you. Let's get virtual. Virtual. I want to get virtual. Let's get our virtual on.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome, folks.
Wow.
Back at you with the singing in the closet.
It's been a while since we sang in the closet, so thank you. I appreciate it.
I had to bless you guys with my beautiful voice.
It was lovely. No, I really did enjoy it.
Oh, goodness.
I have a hard time just like changing the words, though. I wanted to say physical. Well, I did say physical.
You did say physical.
But yes, that was beautiful. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
So, let's fill them in on why you were singing us this wonderful song.
Yes.
We want to talk about the workplace, the new workplace.
Yeah.
And that, although everyone, it seemed, went virtual with the pandemic.
With no choice.
Now, some people are starting to go back. Some people are excited about that. Some people are not.
Yep.
So we thought we'd talk all things working virtually, the pros, the cons, the thoughts, the experience, and who knows what else might come up.
Right. Who knows with us. Yeah, that's another topic brought to you by Steph watching TikTok for a bunch of hours.
So we're going to get sponsored by TikTok, I guess.
We better get sponsored by friggin' TikTok at this point. No.
The amount of hours you spent? No.
Yeah. Well,
no judgment.
We won't talk about that.
No judgment.
But, it's funny because, half my things are all about people that are, literally quitting their jobs because their office wants them to go back and they've realized, I like my lifestyle. And it is interesting to see that a whole bunch of people are like, no, I'm done with this. I'm ready to stay home.
Yeah.
I can do my job even more efficiently at home.
Mm-hmm.
And this is another interesting topic because I can kind of see the world shifting a little bit right now. And I'm really excited to talk about it. I know there's a lot of people that are really excited to get back into the office too. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I'm excited about this topic.
Are you excited?
I'm excited. I'm always excited. I'm just so excited that we're back.
In our beautiful closet. And must I say, your outfit really matches the, what is this called?
It's like a bench, I guess.
Bench, bin,
if you're listening and you don't watch our YouTube, we got a new bin, so we're no longer using the Tupperware container for my husband's Western clothes. Yes, it's pink. So, and we have the blue curtains as well, setting the scene right now.
We are very on brand.
And it's also very hot. We forgot that it becomes a sauna as well. So we're
it's
adapting.
The middle of July.
We're adapting to that. Because that's the thing too. Before we had kind of a slow adjustment when we went from winter, season 2, we went from winter to summer. Well, start of summer, and I was like, oh, it's kind of nice because we're adapting. Now we're just
bam.
Bam.
It is very humid these days.
So humid. Yeah.
But
anyways.
I'm here for it. So, speaking of which, and we can't have a fan on because noise.
You do you really care about audio quality, folks?
Or can we stop sweating? No, we'll dress better next time. It'll be fine. But yeah, this is a really cool topic. I really appreciate it because I think it's where we are today was a long time coming, but we needed something like the pandemic to just shove everyone into it before they were ready.
Yeah.
Because had that not happened, there would still be so many businesses and leaders saying it just isn't possible.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, because if you think about it, before the pandemic, not a lot of people really worked from home that often. Unless you were a freelancer or you made a point for it. It's not, it wasn't a super common job to be oh, I'm searching for remote work only.
Right.
There was, it was slowly edging towards that, like you're saying.
Yeah,
but
at least not here in Canada. Maybe it's different in other countries.
I don't know, because I've always wanted to work remotely so that I could travel and stuff like that. And I still remember, every single time I would apply for a remote job when I first graduated graphic design school, it'd always be a no. I had to go local because every time I was like, oh yeah, we've had over 10,000 applicants. I'm like, ugh.
Well then.
Well.
Scary. Yeah. No, it's interesting. And I think even those who didn't think they'd ever want to work from home, now that they've got a taste for it, there are some who are like, oh my goodness.
This is what it can be like?
But then there's also others who are like, can I please go back to work?
Right.
Like physically. They have been working all along, many of them, but
they need that separation. And also, like, it's the whole conversation of introverts versus like the extroverts. I'm sure the extroverts are like dying to get back into the office.
Yeah.
That the virtual connection just isn't there in the same way that like the introverts are probably saying, yes, I don't have to like have the social anxiety or social awkwardness. Yeah.
I know. I also don't have to put on pants.
Right? I don't have to wear makeup today. Yes.
Amazing. Yeah. It's very interesting. Like one person who's on the super extreme side of wanting to go back is Dave's sister. Like, she works for the government and she was living alone. So, like, working from home, living alone, and then, like, the severe lockdowns and, like, circuit breakers that we went through were really, really hard on her because she is so extroverted.
Oh, yeah. And
they don't even have a date to go back to work yet.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, they're still working from home.
Even though they've lifted the masks and stuff?
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah. At least, well, I haven't spoken to her since that happened, but just wild, right? So, like, someone to that extreme, right? Like, if you... At least if you lived with other people or even had a pet, you'd have something or someone to connect with. But to be fully alone, I don't know how long I've ever gone before without actually physically seeing another human being.
That's true.
Right? So it like the mental health for some people in this transition has been very, very challenging. But then for others, it's made it so much better. Like you were saying, like some people don't have that social anxiety now that they have to worry about or having to put makeup on. So it's really important for people to understand their style and how they best work and what they really need. My hope is that businesses are going to start making this an option. And I mean, I've been a business leader, so I know it's not always possible. Some roles do have to be physically in the building in person, and that's just the way certain things are going to be, but there's so many jobs that are not necessary in that capacity.
Like my job, I know a graphic designer does not need to be there. If anything, it's more of a hindrance because there's people over you being like, oh, push that pixel that way. Like,
what do you know?
What do you know? I'm just kidding. I honestly, speaking of that too, I even wrote in my notes that I do predict, especially like my consensus from what I've seen on TikTok, is that more businesses are going to have to, like, if there's going to be a lot of hesitancy because I think people, the thing is, there's a lot of people that know that it is easier, and I would love to know your opinion on that. It's easier to lead people when they're right there, right? It's easier not to control, I don't want to use that word, but it's easier to make sure that everybody's doing everything and whatnot. It's the control of it that, you know, I can monitor everything and so on and so forth. So I feel like that it's going to be hard to let go of those reins, but then it's becoming more of an impactful leader and having that trust in your employees that they are hired for a specific role. And again, I would love to know your opinion on that, but I do potentially see it moving towards a hybrid situation where people can choose to either work full time or it's like half office, half virtual. And I've seen some kind of companies adapt to that because they realize people are also appreciating being home with their children and having more time. I still go back to like thinking of when I lived in Edmonton. I used to drive 2 hours there and 2 hours back. So 4 hours of my day was in my car in traffic, deadlock traffic.
Stressed out.
And it's Alberta, so everyone's honking and everyone's giving the finger. So it's just, my anxiety was so friggin' high. And it's funny because even when I moved here, I'm like, wow, I feel so much like lighter. And it's weird. And I do think half of it is that. Like, I think I've walked all my jobs here.
Yeah, you probably have.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever driven for a job here, which is pretty interesting. But anyways, I'd love to know your idea about that and like leadership from a perspective of going virtual.
So many thoughts. Yeah. It's well, it's funny, like when I was starting to think about this, one of the last little projects that I was working on, I say little, it wasn't little, in Calgary, was a pilot project to start having some people working remotely. So this would have been in 2017. So a little bit before this was a forced thing. Where we were introducing the concept of hoteling desks. So you didn't have desks where you had all your personal effects and your pictures and all that kind of stuff. It was just a place where you could come and log in for the day. And you'd have a certain number of days at home, certain number of days at the office, and it was a bit of a rotation. So that like you would just have a certain number of people at work of however many hoteling desks there were, right? So we were just kind of starting to get into that. I had to leave before it was completed, but I was like, and I worked for a very innovative, forward-thinking company.
Well, if they're doing that in 2017.
Yeah. So. Yeah. So that was really cool. But then there was so many other companies who were just like, well, no, like, how would that even work? And like you were just saying, like, leaders who would really worry about the loss of control of, you know, if I can't physically see my employees, how do I know that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing?
Yeah.
That is just
a whole bag of worms in itself.
Like, if you're constantly watching your staff, what are you doing?
Yeah.
But, you know, it is what it is. And it's, it is a completely different leadership approach. 100%.
Yeah.
And it's not something that people, and like especially those who were in leadership positions, would have been prepared for, because they didn't ever expect it was going to happen. So I imagine these last 12 to 18 months were very, very challenging in those ways for many people. But for those who were willing to run with it and really adapt and try to figure out their style, I can imagine. And hire a coach. This could have really opened them up in so many ways. Yeah. Because their staff who were constantly late because transit broke down, or there was rush hour traffic, or kids they showed up whatever, like so many different things, and they show up stressed out, whatever, all these things happening, that could be just completely removed. Yeah. Right? So then the mental health of your staff is different. They're showing up on time, more prepared, better rested, because they're not having to get up at 6 a.m. to catch the bus to get there, all these different things, right? So there's a lot of positives that could be there to offset the fact that, yes, you can't actually have literal eyeballs on them all day long. Right. But some of the challenges, too, I think, with the companies that didn't necessarily have the infrastructure in place whenever this got forced upon them was like bandwidth and server limitations. Was like, I was talking to some people who had to go work from home, but they couldn't get onto the network because there was too many, like it was overloaded. And so some people kind of had to work in shifts, or, you know, like, okay, this department can work at this time and then this department, and like, what a nightmare to start with. I'm guessing that all has been worked out now. Yeah. And so now these companies have the means to have the people working from home, and the question is, what makes the most sense? Yeah. When it comes to the company culture and what you're really trying to infuse in people, like, it's one thing for all of these existing employees to have then been sent home to work. Mm-hmm. They already understand the company. They've already built the relationships. They know their peers. They know their management team. You know, there's a connection already there. Imagine being a brand new employee onboarded remotely. Mm. So you've never met your manager in person. You've never met any of your team in person. Like, my heart goes out to those people, and wondering like how lonely and awkward that might be. But it's also kind of amazing that can happen. Right. And if you're willing to put in the time and effort, I think that could still be a very positive experience from both aspects, where you're not losing the culture as much as you could.
Totally.
Oh, man. I feel like I'm just going to talk at you this whole time.
Oh, no, I like it. I like it.
But, like, yeah, like, even for myself, like, I imagine how weird that would be. Because, like, when I would get to work when I was in Calgary in my claims manager role, so I had a team of, like, I had 6 managers reporting to me and then their teams. We were on different floors and in different towers.
Oh, wow.
Downtown. So it took me like close to a half an hour to literally walk the floor and say good morning to everybody every morning. But I did it because I loved that part of the day, right? Like some days I'd have to just do a quick flyby, like, hey guys, good morning, what's up? Ah. And then sometimes you got to actually have a great conversation with them and check in and see what's going on. And like you can't just do those. It's called like managing by walking around, like real technical term, right?
Managing by walking. What you learned on this podcast.
But it matters because I think they want to see
Yeah.
the faces of the leadership as well. We would book the VPs to come and do that from time to time too, like my boss and my boss's boss and stuff. But it just really builds a nice connection, right? So doing that on a Zoom or anything like that, it just doesn't really work the same way. So you would have to be just more creative in what that would look like, whether it's popping them an instant message with like Teams or whatever system that you use at your company, or do you have regular times that you just pick up the phone and call someone or send them emails? Like there's so many ways to still stay connected virtually. Sending a newsletter weekly or something like that too, right? Just to your team. Like I'm just like spitfiring all these different ideas that are sparking for me of like, there's so many ways where I think many leaders are probably just like, well, it's not the same, so I'm not going to do anything.
Yeah. It's true. But, like, I still remember, especially when the pandemic first started, I remember some businesses would, like, send little gifts. So, I can't remember, I don't know if I should talk about it, but anyways, a company local here actually sent donuts, and it was, like, the fancy donuts here.
Right.
It was, like, Donuts by Design, I think.
Yeah.
And they sent, like, just a pack of donuts to each of their employees. And they just had, like, a little powwow and, like, just talked and stuff like that while they ate donuts.
That's
and
cool.
They were so happy. Like, I remember seeing everyone that worked at that company post about it and how exciting it was. And
Yeah.
I think that's, like, the cool thing is, like, it's something little. It probably didn't cost that much in the grand scheme of things. But it made it seem like, okay, we value you. Like, we're still trying to make sure that even though we can't buy you coffee or put out the stale muffins, that we're going to, do something for you.
Yeah.
Even if it is a virtual, like sending those kinds of things. I think that's a really cool aspect of it as well. So
Yeah, I like that. Yeah. A friend of mine is the HR manager at a big software company downtown here too. And they did something similar but she and the rest of the HR team, I think actually like drove around the island to all of their employees and dropped little things off. I think that might have been around Christmas time or something.
that's so cool.
But I just was like, wow, like, and to just, drop it on their doorstep because social distancing and all that kind of stuff. I might have been around circuit breaker time too. I think that all got totally blown out of proportion because there's so much happening. But yes, those little things may seem really little in some capacities, but go such a long way for others, right? Or like still have, like, I know teams that had like Friday afternoon happy hour, where everyone would just log into a Zoom chat or something or a video conference at 4:00 with a drink.
Yeah.
And they're a little more challenging. I think we've all been on too many video conference calls at this point with many, many people. And the unfortunate thing is only one person can be talking at a time. Yeah. So that makes it a little bit harder for a group. But hey, it's
and internet connections. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. It's like, you're breaking up. What? What's going on?
We didn't hear what you said. Can you repeat that? Yeah.
There's just so many cool things that can be done that don't need to be in person.
Yeah.
A thought that I had too, though, was like, what's going to happen to all of these buildings?
Yeah.
If people don't go back.
Right. I do wonder that too. But then we also look at all these big cities that have housing crises. If we turn some of these offices into living situations, might be better for that, which I think is kind of interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd be interested to see if that
would happen. But like I said, I don't see it going fully. I don't think it could. There's like I said, there's too many people that enjoy going to the office. Yeah. It's their way to get out of the house, and I totally get it. Like, it's funny because I'm all like, yeah, let's all go virtual, because I'm a semi introvert. Like, I like to be out, but I also really like being at home. I love being in the digital space, and it's funny because, like, I even wrote in the notes that, like, I've been a solo entrepreneur for, like 3 years now, 4 years almost. And I've been working from home this whole entire time. For a while, I did go into town every once in a while, but for the most part, I worked at home, so I was always used to it. Yeah. And it's funny because, like, I don't think I could go back to a regular graphic design job unless, like, they offered some, like, crazy amount of money or something. Then, like, I like being home. I like that I can take my dog for a walk. That my work-life balance has been better than ever. Like, I remember the expectation that I had to work late because my coworkers were working late, and I'm like, well, I want to go home, but they're staying. Maybe I should stay.
Like peer pressure.
Exactly. Yeah. Or, like, even, like, I still remember, like, the office drama and stuff like that, and it's like, I don't miss that. Like, it's so much harder to do office drama when it's all virtual, right? So it's like, that's another great thing.
Not impossible though.
Not impossible. There's still, well, the thing is too, like, it's
different.
Probably like
different kind of drama.
Yeah, but something like that, like, I do see that it actually might help company culture in the long run to go to a more hybrid situation. Yes, it's going to be a little bit more difficult to kind of be like, okay, well, Susie's on at the office, but Mark is going virtual in the Bahamas. Okay, how are we going to make this work for this meeting? But then you also make it work. We've literally had a whole entire year and a half, 2 years to kind of really be forced to figure it out. And sure enough, I don't, like, the businesses that were able to adapt and stuff really succeeded through the whole entire thing, right?
For sure. Yeah. I love the idea of choice when it comes to this. And I do believe that some businesses are giving that choice right now, but I think the reasoning behind that choice is where people's safety concerns are, right? Yeah. Like, if people are still feeling nervous about going back before either they're fully vaccinated or more of the population is fully vaccinated, that's what's giving them the choice. But I think what the choice really should be landing on is, how do they work best? Yeah. And what do they really need as a human being? So once, one day, I think all these issues are going to be gone. They'll be probably replaced with new ones. But if, like, I know that I need that social stuff. Like, I used to, like, coffee chats, or, like, if I was having a bad day, I would just, like, message one of my friends, usually Natalie. I'm like, I need to go for a walk. When are you free today? And we would just, like, go grab a coffee, do a power walk, vent about something or catch up or whatever, and then back. And, like, you don't have that same thing if you're working from home. True. Right? So little things like that I missed. And I just liked seeing people. I loved my job, so I didn't mind being there, right? And my commute wasn't that bad. Yeah. So if I was going 2 hours each way, all that kind of stuff, like, that definitely would play a totally different factor, and that might have made a different decision for me. But then I know there's some people, that are just like, I don't talk to anybody when I go to the office anyway, so it's really not making any difference for me, and I don't need to be there, and I am way more effective when I'm at home because I don't have the distractions of people popping by my desk or saying hey or whatever, Exactly. There's a lot of that happens, or, like, hearing the drama, getting sucked into it, any of that kind of stuff. So,
well, it's like we always say with the podcast and self-care, there's not a one-size-fits-all. Why are we applying a one-size-fits-all method to working? Exactly. If your employees can be better off and work harder because they're more adapted to their work style, and that could technically make you more money. They're going to be happier. So, you know, like, why not put the effort in figuring out how you're going to make it work?
Yeah.
Because it is so true. Like, why is it that, okay, we're all going to put everyone in a cubicle and it's just going to work? No, like, there's going to be some people that love the cubicle. They love putting their pictures of their family up. They love going in and having a, like, that. They love that. Like, I know I had a friend that, like, loved taking the LRT, which is, like, the little train system in Edmonton.
Yeah.
All the time, because it was her time to listen to podcasts or draw or, like, read her book. Like, it was her time to just chill.
Yeah.
And, like, I know, like, there's some people that, like, they like that. And they like the company culture of going inside the office. But yeah, why is there such a one-size-fits-all to it? It doesn't make sense.
It's true. Yeah, I love that parallel that you draw to the self-care, because it's so true. And it's, yeah.
Allow your employees to take care of themselves.
Yeah, and they're grown-ups.
They're grown-ups,
right? It's not, this isn't school. This is
Yeah.
real life employment. Like, if they're doing the job that they're getting paid to do, why does it matter where they are? Unless they're literally a customer facing, like, working a desk where public come in. That is a different story. But the typical, like, office job, it's really not needed. And I think that's just so very exciting in many ways.
So, if I was a business that, say, had a few employees and they're kind of starting to feel a little bit anxious about potentially having to go back to work or stay virtual, how would you kind of handle that situation?
So many questions. There's a lot of factors to consider, right? But if what it came down to, like, obviously there's overhead costs that businesses have, right? You're paying for an office building, and if it's going to sit there empty, then it's a waste of money. So if there is a way to repurpose that space or downsize it or do something, right? Like, maybe you can rent it out or whatever, sublet it, end your lease. I could go on with lots of different options. Anyway, if that wasn't a factor and your staff truly just, like, were killing it at home, and that didn't, you know, it wasn't impacting your sales or your clients or whatever it is that you're doing, like, I would be really open to having the conversation of how it could work. And I would have that as a conversation. Like, at the end of the day, as the leader or the business owner, like, you do get to make those decisions. And if what is truly best for your business is going to be having the staff in there, then you're going to have that hard conversation with those employees.
Yeah.
But is it because you just think it needs to be that way, or is it time for you to start looking at things from different perspectives?
Exactly.
And really hearing from them, okay, like, how is it going to work? What is it going to look like? You know, what are maybe there's some differences in how the work needs to be done if it's all going to stay remote. Maybe you've already worked a lot of that out too, though. And then that's really cool. But I do know, like, one of the most disheartening things as a business owner is paying for something that's not being used.
Yeah.
So I think that's going to be one of the biggest,
like, breaking points.
For many employers. And commercial leases tend to be longer term also. Yeah. So if you just sign that lease and you've still got 4 or 5 years left on it, that's a lot of money to be spending for an empty space.
True.
But maybe your staff are going to be that much more productive if they're working from home. Yeah. And maybe you're going to have increased revenues that'll offset that extra cost, right? Like, true. You'd have to look at, like, what's happening. Take the time, look at the numbers. But if your staff are really telling you that that's what they want, a good leader is going to listen to them and have that really good conversation about it. And, you know, maybe there's a hybrid option, like we talked about too, right? Where it's sometime in the office and sometime at home. Because I think what a lot of, especially those smaller businesses that really can build a strong, fun team dynamic, you start to lose that if you're not coming together anymore, right? Yeah. So how do you keep, maybe there's ways that it's like, okay, every Wednesday we're all still going to come to the office, and then the other days you can choose.
Yeah.
Like, that would be a really cool option to be able to have and let people choose, because some days they may really just need to get out of the house and some days they may not be able to leave the house.
That's so true. And there's so much like technology out there for businesses too that like there's so many task management, like all these freaking calendars. Like there's a app or software for every single thing that your business may need to do.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, you're gonna have to pay for it, but if say your whole entire team wants to go virtual, paying $30 a month for a software is much cheaper than paying $20,000 a month for office lease or something like that.
Oh, yes.
So it is true. It's like looking at the actual costs, and yeah, if your team is saying, hell yeah, let's do this, then why not?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's finding what is going to work, because it is true there is still the dynamic that you kind of need to have, or else it just becomes like everyone's just off doing their own little thing, and then there might be some things that get missed.
Right.
Because like, there's so many times where other people are like, oh, hey, did you get that? Oh, yeah, thank you for reminding me, you know? Like, yeah, there's communication softwares, but it still sometimes gets missed in, like, the natural conversation of being in person.
Yeah.
So I do really like that. But even I remember back when I was having, like, as all entrepreneurs do, looking at full-time jobs because you're having a bad month or anxiety and you're like, screw business entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
I remember looking at like a job application. They had like that they do socials, like virtual socials, because they're all over the globe, so they can't even have an office.
Yeah.
And they do socials where like they'll pay for your lunch and everyone just gets together. They also have like activities where there's either like a game or they all do like yoga together, even though it's all virtual.
Yeah.
Like they'll actually bring in a yoga teacher. And I'm like, that is actually really cool, because yeah, there's going to be some people that are going to roll their eyes and just do it because the team's doing it. They might even take part, but like at the same time, for this people that also really appreciate that, like you're gonna always get some. Again, there's no different. There's a whole bunch of different work styles. There's some people that aren't there to make friends, or you know, they're just in their own little lane, and that's cool. But there are like, I like to make connections. I like to make sure that I'm working with people, because especially for what I do, I like to get opinions and feedback and like say, hey, does this look off? Is there something like this? And that is one thing that I definitely miss about being, you know, on a team, is that like I sometimes am always questioning myself because I don't have someone to, you know, feedback off of. Right. I can't just be like, Cashew, my dog. Yeah. What does this look like?
One woof for good and two woofs for bad.
Right. Wiggle your bum for this and just sit for this one.
Yeah. He just always looks happy. So
yeah, I was gonna say, he just loves everything I do.
Yeah.
Supportive pep. But yeah,
I think that's really cool. Like there's so many different factors, and you're right. Like, this isn't a new thing. There are were already companies that were global and virtual, and they find ways to make it work, right? But I also imagine that at that time, travel was also a very extensive thing, right? So they could all be together if they needed to be.
Oh yeah, a lot of them had like yearly company retreats and stuff like that too. That was also a big perk as well, because then you'd still get together to meet the people that you're talking to.
And build those relationships.
Which I still think, like, if you are building an online team that's like a way, I think first of all you could probably write off most of that retreat as a business owner, and also like getting people actually together to build those, like, I think that'd be huge.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it'd be really cool. Yeah, but I think it's, you know, like, it really does come down to you can't be a micromanager and have staff that are virtual.
Oh gosh.
Really shouldn't be a micromanager anyway. And this is coming from a controlling person, so it's like, if you're finding that is something that you're having a hard time letting go of because you're running a business or you're managing a team, then that's an important place to start recognizing, like, where is it that I'm getting really hung up on needing to be the one with the hands in the pot, and where can I start stepping back and developing the trust for my team? Because, like, why would you want to watch them 24/7 and know what exactly they're doing? Let's just make sure they're producing the results that you're expecting. How they do it, when they do it, does that even really matter that much?
Right.
In most cases, it doesn't. Now, I come from the world of, like, I managed a contact center. So all of that really did matter. I had to have a certain number of people on the phones at all like between 8 and 6 every day, and I needed to be moving documents, and like there was a lot of big constraints to managing a contact center. And I say contact center, not call center. And there's two different things, but I'm not going to explain that today. But although there was a lot of constraints, there was also so many stats.
Mm.
And the facts don't lie.
Yeah.
Right? So it did matter that you were logged in on time, because our workforce team worked really hard to know exactly how many people were needed to be on the phone at that time. And if you were late, then your team is picking up your calls, right? Like there's just all these different things. And I could see if you were late, and I could show you that you were late instead of me making up the story that you were, right?
Yeah.
Or you not believing me. So like it was very black and white. So in lots of ways that was quite awesome. But I myself would have floundered working in that environment as the employee. I would have hated it. And some of them loved it and did so great. So again, it comes back to like knowing yourself and knowing your staff and being in an environment that works for you. So one job that you do virtually might be like the best thing in the world for you, and another one you might not be able to do very well.
Right. Man, that kind of like takes me on like a podcast I listened to a long time ago about this lady. She's a career coach. She helps people figure out what they're good at. And like she's like, yeah, there's some people that thrive in like those kinds of things. Like, yeah, you probably like, I would have hated that too. I don't think I could definitely do. I know I can't do it. I have social anxiety. I hate being on the phone. Yeah. Don't call me. But yeah, she's a coach and she helps people figure out what they want to do with their lives. And including like what kind of a career path. I'm like, that is a very interesting thing. And I think that's another thing too, is figuring out who's the again, starts with like even hiring who's the best fit, and are they going to work in that position, virtual or non-virtual too. Like we're kind of going off tangents now, but
that's what we do.
This is what we do. It's the it's interesting though.
It is. Yeah. And like thinking about it too, like if you are going to have a virtual team, like I said before, like the onboarding process would be very unique, right? So it's not, hey, come to this office and meet with me in person. That doesn't happen anymore because there's no office to meet at. And maybe you're not even in the same city as this person now, because it doesn't matter if you are, because it's a virtual thing. So there's just all these different things to think about. But I think it's also like a really wonderful, exciting opportunity for so many people who are willing to let go of what they've always known and step into this expansive space of allowing people to design the lives that they want, right? Like at the end of the day, like I said, depending on, as long as you're not customer facing, the how and the when, as long as you're meeting your deadlines, really shouldn't matter.
So true. So
for someone who loves to sleep till 10 o'clock in the morning, can they not get up and work 12 to 8? And for someone who loves to get up at 5 a.m., could they work from 6 till 2? Right? Like,
well, our friends at the Philbert Podcast, they're another fellow local podcast. I was listening to their episode, and they talked about like how both of them work better in the evenings, yet most of the jobs, you can't really work the evenings. That's not applicable. So for them, like they had to kind of create jobs that were, you know, outside of that. And I thought that was really interesting. And it is true. Like if you are able to be more flexible, like, the check-ins and the virtual calls and the meetings, please make it. But if you can work around that, why not let them figure out what's the best path?
100%.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think let your employees dictate that.
Yeah.
Right? That's how they're going to be happiest. So whatever the environment is that they need and that they're going to thrive in, build it.
Yeah.
Help create it with them.
What about our fellow listeners that are kind of like me, that are not with team?
So like, say more.
Yeah. So like, I think that's another thing too, is a lot of our listeners are also starting their businesses, or they're solo entrepreneurs as well. We have quite a few listeners that I know are solo entrepreneurs. I see you. I don't know. I'd like to have the discussion too, because I think, yes, it's important to connect and create that company culture. when it comes to employees. But even when you're first starting, you're probably going to be by yourself. You might have contractors here and there, but for the most part, it's mostly you.
Yeah.
So how do we do everything virtual? Right?
Like with your clients and everything too?
Yeah, like, well, how would I lead myself?
How do you lead yourself?
I don't know. Figuring it out as much as possible.
I think, again, it comes down to, like, making agreements with yourself that you are not just going to break all the time, right? So you're not breaking these promises that you make to yourself. But there's a lot of joy in the flexibility for lots of people. Yeah. But then there's also some people who thrive off consistency. So if you're a consistent person, then have standard work hours for yourself, even if nobody else is impacted by it. But if you know that you need that and that rhythm and routine, then set it up. It might take a little bit of time to get into that habit.
But figure it out and then build upon it. Yeah. No, it's so true, because I when I first started my business, I almost used the excuse that my job was very flexible to a fault. Like, I could take this time off because I'm flexible. Then all of a sudden I'm like, my deadlines are coming up.
I didn't work at all this week.
I'm going to have to work on Saturday to make up for all that time that I took off. Okay, I can't just be as flexible. And that's the funny part too, is that they tell you, you can just do this and do that. And it's like, yeah, you can to a certain extent, but then you also have to have systems in place for that as well.
Yeah.
But
there's trying to think, it's like with structure comes more flexibility is what I'm learning for myself too, because I'm still kind of transitioning through all that too, right? And
well, you go through different seasons too for yourself.
Also, it's just like, I don't even know how I do it. I just do. But like today, for instance, my day was available to be booked by clients, but nobody needed me today, so I had a full day of being available. And I was so tempted when I woke up. I'm like, maybe I'll just lay on the couch, and I did for a little bit. I watched a show this morning. First thing this morning, I watched a show at 7 a.m.
Whoa, who are you?
I just didn't feel like working yet.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to do my workout yet, and I was just like, I guess I'll just turn on a show. Weird. But I could. But that could have spiraled to me just like watching TV all day. Yeah. And in the past, it probably has. So it's like, it's a little bit tricky. But I also like really, really want to take tomorrow off completely. Yeah. So I kept reminding myself of that.
Gotta get this done.
And I have a to-do list that I've been working through all week. And that helps me as well, right? Because it's like that satisfaction of crossing things off that list as I go. And there was a couple of things that had been hanging over my head that I've now crossed off, and that feels amazing. So I'm really happy about that. But I also told myself, you're going to work a full day today. And that doesn't matter what time you do it, but you're going to do it.
Exactly.
Yeah. So the working from home, like, it's when you're working for yourself and you're working from home, I have days where I am fully from home, like today. There's other days where I'm at the deep sea or I'm down to Chandler Coaches or whatever. And that forces me places, and that makes a big difference. But I find the days I'm working from home is like, hello, procrastination city. Oh, it is like takes over my life sometimes.
That's, yeah.
How's that resonating for you?
Like too much. Like I think we've talked about it a couple times on this podcast, like about my procrastination. Like I'll always meet a deadline. Don't you worry, I will meet a deadline. Yeah. But like I will procrastinate, and it's funny because I've been really trying to learn more about why I do it. Because I know it's bad, and then every time I procrastinate, I kick myself, and then it's a whole entire spiral where I'm, belittling myself, and it's like, why do I do this? And right. I watched a really cool YouTube video, and it's like, back to my YouTube, but he talked about like how when you're procrastinating, you're avoiding something. So what is it that you're avoiding? Okay. So for me, I had to do a lot of like soul searching, and sure enough, it was because I was too afraid to get judged on it. Like I know it sounds really bad, but as a designer, like I still sometimes worry about getting critiqued, you know, especially if there's a project that I feel really happy about.
Right.
There's so many times where I'm like, this is a great logo.
Yeah,
I love what this, they're going to love it. And then they come back and they hate it. And I'm like, okay, so I question everything. I suck.
Right.
And then the spiral goes.
Yeah.
And I think it's because I'm so connected, like you said before to me a couple times, like I feel my emotions very big.
Yeah.
And it's something I'm still kind of working on. Perhaps that means I'm not in the right industry, but I like doing it, so whatever. But I had to realize, like, whenever I am procrastinating, I have to ask the question to myself, and I start having the dialogue with myself of, what am I avoiding right now?
I like that.
And sure enough, like, I've been trying to learn about more of, like, being, like, especially as we're more virtual, is asking more questions so that I'm not also going into things blindly. Because it's a thing, too, and I even put that in my notes, is you can't really make assumptions, especially when things get missed virtually.
Yeah.
So even though I'm not meeting my clients face-to-face anymore, I still need to have a couple emails back and forth or have a couple meetings and write down, maybe send them more mood boards until I get, you know, spend so much time that I create something that I think is going to be great that they don't like because there's something missed in translation.
Right.
I think that's something that we all can kind of learn from, too, in the sense of communication, I think, can be a little bit tricky online. Sometimes we just kind of want to get off that Zoom meeting as fast as we can because we're so tired of it.
Now get people to a Zoom meeting, right?
Yeah.
Because people are just like, oh my God,
not another one of those. Not another one of those.
Yeah, exactly. But what was I going to ask you? Yeah, it's like working from home, working on your own, and the self-doubt starts coming up, right?
Yeah.
Like that would be a time that you'd be better served to be in a communal space with other people where you could voice it to them too,
exactly.
right? Or just say like, can someone just take a quick look at this, or what does that look like? So it's like, how do you invite that in even still in a virtual way?
Yeah.
That you could be doing a little bit of it as you notice the procrastination too. Like
exactly.
That might be helpful. And that would be the same case for, you know, not just for graphic designers, but I'm sure there's people working on projects all the time who are feeling really lonely at home by themselves. And like, maybe there's other people in the house, but it's like their spouse or their kids or whatever, like they can't really ask them, right? So like, communication and asking for help and for feedback and learning to be vulnerable and say what you're feeling will take people a long way in being able to be successful virtually as well, I think.
Oh, that's so true. Yeah.
Yeah. And then like the business leaders or the owners who are overseeing these teams, like being the person who shows how to do that would be key as well. So if you can first be vulnerable and be able to connect with them, then they're going to be like, oh, this is a safe space.
Yeah.
And I know I can pick up the phone and call Stephanie or call whoever, or, you know, send them an email and say like, I'm feeling really overwhelmed right now. I need to connect.
Yeah. No, I like that.
Yeah. That was a big, like I was trying to think of what are the best ways to stay connected virtually, right? Like I was imagining like, okay, if I was in my old role when all of this went down, what would I have done to stay connected to my team? And like my best guesses were like continue with the regular check-ins, right? Like sure, I can't walk the floor.
Walk your floor.
And like maybe it would have been impossible to be connecting with 100 people on a regular basis, right? So there might have been more grouped messaging in some cases, and then individual one-on-one with those who reported directly to me. Like I would kind of see that, right? And that would be more regularly. I think I met with them on like a weekly or bi-weekly basis, my one-on-ones when I was there in person, but we would still run into each other all the time. You miss that too, right? The elevator chats.
Right. Coffee.
Or just
water
run into
jug
them.
chats.
The water jug, yeah. Or like run into them at the Starbucks down on the second floor. Or like, you know, just different things like that you just miss out on. So it's like being very intentional with regularly checking in and not leaving it up to them to say when they need it.
Right.
Right. Yeah. and figuring out what the best method for that is too, right? Because not everybody wants to jump on a video call with you. One thing I heard from some leaders, where was this? I don't remember, but not forcing people to be on video all the time. Because some people just didn't feel it sometimes, right? Like, it's just like, no. Especially those who aren't customer facing or anything. It doesn't matter what they look like or what they're wearing. Yeah. If they're like, no, like, I just really don't want to be on video today. Like, there's no reason to make that mandatory.
Right.
Like, make it comfortable for your staff.
Exactly. Another tip that we got from Instagram was to get out more. That now that vaccines are happening, they're doing more walking meetings, or they're meeting up at coffee shops. But then also like realizing that they need to set their boundaries. So not overbooking, but then also realizing that, hey, like, I need to actually get out of the house every once in a while. Yeah. This person is a solo entrepreneur, so I know that they're probably wanting to get out of the house a little bit more. Yeah. So, and I think that's a really good tip that, like, I know even, like, for myself, when I have my highest anxiety, it's because I've been in my house.
For too long.
For way too long.
Only seeing James.
Only seeing James and my pets.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a really good point. And sometimes we do just need that change of environment. Yeah. Right? Like, our weather's been really wonky lately too, where we'll get some nice sunny days and then we get these weird dark rainy days. And like last week or a couple weeks ago there was a dark rainy Friday, I think, and again, like, I didn't have any meetings, but I had work that I really wanted to get done, so I went to bar 1911 for the morning by myself. And I don't do that a whole lot because I do get a lot of social interaction at the deep sea and different places like that. So I'm usually pretty filled up in that case. But I just knew, I was like, I will lay on the couch and cover myself in my blanket and I will get nothing done today. And I had a very productive morning at the coffee shop, which was awesome. And just kind of the buzz of people around you, even if you're not talking to them directly, there's just something about it.
And I always run into someone at that coffee shop. For our listeners that aren't in PEI, it's a little coffee shop in PEI, and it's funny because that's my social. Yeah, I always see people. Like,
always. Hey. Yeah, it's a very popular one. They have free parking too, so that probably helps. Even though neither of us drive there.
Another tip before we go to controversial stuff. Another tip is to obviously stay on social media. So love it or hate it. It does still do a really, really great job at keeping us connected to people we follow, our communities, what's going on, the pulse, you know? Yeah. Obviously, like our previous episodes and like the highlight reel and stuff, know your limitations with social media. Don't feel like you need to go on it all the time. Know your boundaries. But at the same time, if you stay connected on social media, it still makes you feel a little bit connected as well. So
yeah, big time. Yeah, it's just like, just be careful who you're following, right? Like, I love the unfollow button. Oh, it is the best.
Or the not even unfollow, or the it's the one that you just hide them from your timeline. That's my favorite one, where you're not like unfollowing them, but you're just like, ooh, I don't need to see that content.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so there's lots you can do, and I have like, well, you and I talk almost every day. Yeah, Bernadette and I talk pretty much every day. Like, just on Messenger, right? Like, it's just a quick, like, what's your plan today? What are you doing today? Like, and it doesn't even need to be anything too extreme, but sometimes it's just nice to know that someone else cares what you're up to and how you're doing, right? So, like,
that's so true.
If you don't have one of those people, then, like, think about who in your community could be that person, and maybe they're also craving that. So just reach out to people and ask them what they need and develop. It's kind of like, we've talked a little bit about accountability in the past here too, right? Like, it's just a little buddy, just someone to check in with, so you're not feeling so alone. Exactly. If you're at home all the time.
Join communities and stuff, and
so much we can do. Yeah, it's definitely here to stay.
Yes.
And that's really exciting. I think it came much faster than many were probably ready for. But I hope that people are embracing it and just recognizing, like, how do we take the good and let go of the bad? Yeah. And find what works for us.
and adapt to what your business needs.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
If your employees are taken care of, guarantee your business will be taken care of.
Always. Yeah. So maybe it's time to just shift things up a little bit. So be open to it. If your staff are saying that that's what they want, have the conversation.
And look at the numbers and figure things out.
Yeah. There's so much good that could come from that.
And if you're scared about your leadership in that, hire Julianne.
Thanks for the plug.
You're welcome. I think the 2 plugs in one friggin' episode. Look at me go.
Goodness.
You start earning commission on your
Done.
Step commission.
I'll pay you with my friendship.
Yay. my free leadership coach.
I love it. I love
man.
it. Yeah.
Goodness.
Are you going to take us out with a song too, or are you good?
No, I feel like I've already probably hurt people's ears. I don't want to hurt any more ears.
That's fine. I think what I want to hear from our listeners and watchers is I want to know, like, are you working virtually, or are you back to the office, or do you have the ability to have a hybrid setup that you can kind of create for yourself? So let us know what that's looking like for you, because I think this time last year, like when we first launched the podcast, pretty much everyone was virtual. Yeah. And now I hope that choice is there. So curious to hear how that's actually panning out in real life.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely let us know. And please like, share, comment, subscribe,
all the things.
Rate our episode, leave a good rating. We would absolutely love it, because the algorithm will then love us. And we just want to help more people. Yeah, exactly. But with that being said, another episode is done.
You got it.
Let's get... No,
virtual,
I'm not going to do it.
Virtual. I want to get virtual.
Let's get to virtual. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Thriving Tides. Hit the subscribe button to never miss an episode.
Follow us, Thriving Tides, on Facebook, Instagram, and now YouTube to stay connected. And remember, don't fight the rip currents.